This is estate planning attorney Jason Lindamood, and today I want to talk about what does not go through probate when you pass away. So let's define probate first, because I know we've all heard that term multiple times in different scenarios, probably as we've grown up and became adults. But let's briefly define it. When we die and our loved ones need things like our property retitled, or we have a will that memorializes who gets what from our estate assets, then they'll typically hire a probate lawyer. The lawyer will file the will with the county that we are residing in at the time that we die, and they'll file an application for probate. There will then be a hearing in front of a judge with the probate court. They'll have to wait a certain amount of time for this process to play out. Then, at some point, the judge will enter an order that allows our executor to collect our assets, to sell what needs to be sold, to pay our debts for us, and then distribute whatever stuff that's left to who we want it to go to based on how we've written it up in our will. So that's a super basic explanation of the probate process in general. No matter where you're watching this from, no matter what state you're in, it typically goes that way. There may be some nuancical differences here and there, but generally, that's the scope of what you're going to be dealing with. Now, there are certain types of assets that we may have that can circumvent this entire probate process and skip having to wait for a judge's ruling altogether, which makes it super convenient for our loved ones to start acquiring the assets we want them to have. And a couple examples are anything with beneficiary designation forms. And those assets would not have to go through the probate process because we have specifically designated a particular person to collect on it after we die. Think life insurance policies or bank accounts where we've designated our spouse or maybe our adult child as the beneficiary by, in terms of a bank account, signing a payable on death form or something similar to that. Now, the only way those assets would have to go through probate is if your designated person predeceased you. In other words, they die before you do, and you never circle back around to designate someone else in their place. But as long as there are valid forms that you've properly listed specific individuals to have access to once you've passed away, then the only thing your designated person will need to do is to provide that institution with a death certificate, and once they do, then there really should be no impediment for them to access that particular asset. Now, while I'm thinking about it, if there is a conflict between the language in your will and the person that your beneficiary designation form lists, the designation form always wins. It's always going to control. So in other words, the probate court will presume that your specific listing of an individual on who your person is, on your life insurance or bank account, is truly what your wishes are. So if your will happens to say something totally different as it relates to that particular section of language in the will, then that particular section of language won't be given any credence by the probate court. So the bottom line is that the beneficiary designations will always trump the language in your will. And so it's important to remember, if we have a beneficiary designation form for life insurance or a payable on death form at a bank for our banking purposes, those are going to control no matter what our will says. Best case scenario, they don't conflict with one another. Worst case scenario, they do conflict. The person on the designation form is going to get something that maybe we don't want them to have. But let's always make sure we stay on top of who our people are and who our designated beneficiaries are. As long as we do that, we shouldn't have any problems and everything should run smoothly. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. And if you happened to get anything out of this content, please feel free to leave a like or a comment because it's always greatly appreciated. Talk to you next time.